Pre-Onk, a Godzilla movie marathon where we're stomping through Godzilla's filmography. I'm Derek, and I've seen all the Godzilla movies.
And I'm Doug, and I've seen 5 Godzilla movies and now 1 Mothra movie.
Woohoo! And we are, of course, bowing down before our queen of the monsters with gay icon Mothra's original introduction in the Showa era in her solo film, appropriately titled Mothra, also known as Mothra in Japanese, released on Japan on July 30th, 1961, created by a lot of the usual suspects, directed by Ishiro Honda, produced by Tomoyuki Tanaka, special effects by Eiji Tsuburaya, screenplay by Shinichi Sekizawa, and score by Yuji Kozeki. But before we get into it, we are joined by a very special guest, the Eisner-winning creator of the Dead End series and its Netflix adaptation, Dead End Paranormal Park, and Tokusatsu superfan, Hamish Steele, who is voguing right now. Welcome, Hamish.
Voguing is a way to hide my face in embarrassment, which is probably the gayest way to do it. Thanks for having me. This episode, I'm sure you would have covered it eventually, if you went beyond the Godzilla series, but this episode seems to have come about because I DM'd you and said, "Oh my god, are you going to do Mothra?" And that's because I have a couple of personal kind of connections to this film, I suppose. And I'm really glad you're doing it because I do think it is something I've seen other Godzilla marathons kind of skip over. And I think the fact that you're already going out of sequence, which is an aspect I really love with this podcast, I think it's really good to cover because I don't know how you feel, but it gives a lot of, in my opinion, context to maybe King Kong versus Godzilla that you've just watched. Because, it's this is what was happening between that and Raids Again. It was all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I am also very glad we're covering it because I probably would have watched it anyway prior to when Mothra intersects with Godzilla, just because my brain would force me to do that. But also, you're right; it adds a lot of context. I think it was interesting to watch and be like, okay, I'm starting to see some pieces here, and I'm understanding King Kong versus Godzilla maybe a little bit more having seen this one now. And also, I'm glad we watched it because I just thought it ruled.
Yeah,
it was so good.
I really liked it a lot. Yeah, no, I am too. And I think the original conceit was that I think we only were saying we were doing the Godzilla ones just to put parameters on there and because there's so many movies and we're all busy. But the upside to a monthly podcast is that there's plenty of space to just add extra stuff. So I think it worked out. And I agree. I actually am glad too that we did King Kong versus Godzilla first, even though it comes a year after, because I do think we sort of jumped into the deep end with that movie for Doug. And then this movie kind of scales it back and it's sort of okay, but here's why though. And here's, and in some ways, here's kind of the good version of some of the stuff we didn't really like about King Kong versus Godzilla, I would argue. I'm really excited to talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. If you, you know that the Godzilla series is split up into these different eras. And if you're looking at just the Godzilla films, there's this massive gap between Raids Again and King Kong versus Godzilla. And it's such a big leap to go from, Raids less so, but the original's sort of tone, and then King Kong versus Godzilla. And I think if you fill that gap in with Mothra, there's also Rodan, there's Varan, there's a bunch of other less giant monster, but there's a lot of alien invasion movies that Ishiro Honda directed and are sort of part of the world. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But it fills in that gap, and you think about those coming out kind of yearly and the audience sort of going on the journey from atomic horror parable to space aliens and fairies and stuff. It feels a bit smoother, but I think this kind of stands on its own as well. It doesn't feel we might talk about the whole kind of cinematic universe aspect, which nowadays means something very different, but back in the day it was a bit looser.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to have you. The only way this episode could be more perfect if it was happening in Pride Month, but there is also a different Godzilla film I would suggest for Pride Month, just saying. I don't know if you'd get there in time, but there is a gayer one than this, for sure.
Beautiful.
Okay. Now, before we get into Mothra stuff, I am curious, Hamish, what's your I don't know. This is such a big loaded question. What's your just like history and background with like Godzilla, Toku, Mothra, the whole universe, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I consider myself a lifelong fan. I have two older brothers, and my oldest brother, I think the first film he watched was Return of Godzilla, which you've seen on TV one day, and I think it kind of lit a fascination in him. And
I love it.
I grew up in a house where like Godzilla was a topic of discussion. I think when the Matthew Broderick 1998 film came out, there was on UK TV, there was this like Godzilla night, and they played a bunch of movies, and then a bunch of them came out on video over here. So I was kind of collecting them in my sort of knowledge, like film by film, as a very young kid. And I have a few kind of distinct little kind of memories is, first of all, in the UK, it was really inaccessible. Like these films were really much harder to get hold of. And a lot of even the later ones, I didn't see, I like read about extensively, but just could not see in forever. Like not even pirating them kind of was accessible at that time. A few of them I saw on like imported Hong Kong VCDs, which is like a movie split across 2 discs and you have to change halfway through. And now when I rewatch those movies, it feels weird when the film keeps going. There was like a comic shop. I used to collect like figures of Godzilla monsters that I hadn't encountered in the movies yet because I like was fascinated by them. We went on this big like America trip once, and I picked up the Godzilla Compendium book, which is like an unofficial like tatty, well it's like on my shelf now, but it's like really like worn because I'd bring it with me all the time. And that kind of like gave you information about all the films up to that point. So like half of my love of Godzilla was watching the films, but so much of it was like trying to find them, like a Pokedex basically. And there was some that like eluded me for years. I then joined online kind of forums and stuff when they started to emerge. And when the Millennium series started, Godzilla.co.jp was like one of the places I'd go to on my school computers. And so again, I'd like read and look at films I couldn't see a lot. So like it was, I'm a big fan of Doctor Who. That was like another show I did that of like classic Who. If you couldn't watch it, you could read about it and you could imagine. Then to sort of explain the Mothra connection, I guess I kind of liked Mothra quite a lot in the films. I don't want to spoil too much about Mothra's later appearances, but some of them are, I would say, less spotlighted than others. She is she's a cameo queen. Sometimes she does not bring her A game. Sometimes they will drag the prop out of storage
and blow it up, and then it's like, well, there's Mothra for the movie. Cool. Anyway.
But she was fine. I mean, some of the movies I was like, I couldn't care less that Mothra's in this. This is like kid me thinking. But then as I joined forums, I started to notice something. I was closeted, but I found that Mothra avatars were kind of like the hanky code of Godzilla like forums. So
that's incredible.
If someone had a Mothra avatar, or someone had a Mothra signature picture or a Mothra name, I knew they were either a little bit fruity or at least a safe space. And I've never met a homophobic Mothra fan. So I kind of again, I don't want to spoil too much. This is not Mothra's only solo film. There are some later ones, and that Mothra has all kinds of transformations and rainbow colored like digi evolutions. It's crazy. And so again, I hadn't seen those films. I'd see these icons. I had a few friends. I'd sometimes wonder where they are now, but like the only thing I have to go on is their name being like Mothra lover sort of or something. But that was honestly kind of my first experience talking to gay people. I was like 12 or 13 or something, and finding out that you could be gay and not like sort of chased out of the town with pitchforks was like really moving to me. And so I know that the whole like Mothra is a gay icon thing is like a joke basically. Like I don't want to get your hopes up. There's no scene in any of these movies where Mothra's like leading the parade. But there is something very appealing, I think, about something that's very powerful and very sort of feminine and dainty, I suppose. It's a giant version of a very delicate animal.
Yeah.
And not only that, but this story and a lot of the Mothra stories have this message of like, don't come for me. Like it's like, let me live my life. And I think what's interesting about this film is while it's a big monster destroying things, the reasons for this are very clear. Like with a lot of monsters, with Godzilla, you have to like extrapolate or like theorize what Godzilla's doing. Is he lost? Is he angry at humanity? Is he like coming to land to get radiation or something? In this one, it's like, you came for me and I'm gonna come for you. And what's great is that Mothra's right. Humanity agrees and goes like, actually, we should give Mothra what she wants, and then she'll bugger off, and she does. And spoilers for the film, but I think it's interesting is that throughout the series, Mothra, and I know I'm a big part of this is not spoiling anything for you. Spoilers: Mothra does come back occasionally. What? But no matter what role Mothra's playing, be it like the sort of a central role or a cameo or like Godzilla's friend, Godzilla's enemy, that kind of personality actually stays really consistent. That Mothra is this kind of being of nature that like is not aggressive but is kind of vengeful or like like
protective or defensive, but like in a good warm way.
Not vengeful, protective, and sort of seeks justice. And I don't know. So I think there's definitely a reason why that character appeals maybe for the more sensitive boys on the internet forum than the other monsters that you'll get to meet, which are more represent other things. So
fire breathing wrestlers.
Right. A lot of monsters are like edgier and more masculine and stuff like that. It totally makes sense. It also strikes me watching this movie, because this was the first time that I had seen this movie for this podcast, and it really struck me, like, even knowing the mythology of Mothra and stuff, how much from this movie really does care, how many elements from this movie carries over into multiple movies, like across multiple continuities, compared to Godzilla, where like it feels like there's this constant feeling of needing to reinvent him in some way or redesign him or whatever. Like Mothra, like roughly always looks pretty similar, and like so many pieces of her backstory and like sort of what the role that she's playing like appears in multiple movies, not just in this Showa era, but like, going forward in other eras too, which I found very fascinating. And I think maybe is just part of the staying power of like this sort of story that they've concocted for her,
Yeah.
Even when America did a Mothra adaptation, in the sense Mothra's in one of the like Legendary Pictures movies, it's not enough just to have like a big bug in a movie and call it Mothra. And I think it's a fairly good adaptation, but like Mothra doesn't just mean a big Mothra, it means a sense of kind of magical, like it's like the magical element kind of interrupting the Godzilla kind of world. I think Mothra has to come with basically the Mothra song, the Mothra mythos, some allusion to tiny little priestesses. It's like there's like so many like weird little parts of the lore that is also why people like Mothra. It's not just a big bug, because to be honest, I don't really like moths that much. They're really scary. Although
they're very irritating.
We don't have nice moths in the UK. I think in Japan they have lots of very colourful nice moths, and it makes a bit more sense. But it's nice. I mean, I want to just say one more anecdote about this movie, which is I actually also didn't see it for a long time. And I think that's a testament to, when you come to it, these kind of Mothra Godzilla crossovers, they do a very good job like explaining it. It's not, it's fine.
Yeah.
So I saw this at a screening, I'd say about 8 years ago. It was just showing in London. and I had never been, so I went with someone who was like a friend like a friend of a friend. I like him, but he was like my actual friend's like partner, and it just sort of shook out that that's the person who came with me with the ticket. And I don't think he had ever seen a kaiju film of any kind, and we all sat there, and like I think most of the audience hadn't. And what
fascinating.
Why were they there?
Yeah.
It's a very like trendy old movie cinema. People just go to see whatever is showing there. So,
Okay.
But I hadn't seen it either. So we were watching this film, and I think for the first chunk of it, there was a lot of laughing in the audience at the effects. There was a lot of like kind of not being on board with the film, and even the like caterpillar form of Mothra. There were kind of people laughing. I think those effects look pretty good, but whatever.
I think they look amazing, but sure, yeah.
The moment that really I will always like think is one of my favorite moments of being a kaiju fan or whatever is when Mothra like actually emerged from her cocoon. There was kind of silence in the audience, and I could tell that the audience had switched their brains from this looks fake to you're watching a puppet show. You wouldn't like laugh at a puppet show. You would it's going from this doesn't look real to this looks beautiful, even if it's not trying to even if it's not maybe succeeding in reality. And I will say that I do actually think the effects are trying to go for reality. I think there's this idea sometimes that they're like they don't care about that. But I think this idea that it's like those look like model cities, and then switching to it's incredible that they made an entire model city just to be destroyed. And as the films go on, the artistry gets even better. I mean, the way that I don't want to completely take over, but like the way that they actually did the caterpillar Mothra, I think is surprising. I don't think everyone quite realizes how that's being done.
I was trying to figure it out without looking up anything, and I'm not totally sure.
Well, it's way bigger than you think. It's like I always thought it was just like something put on a train track, but that's two people basically standing up inside.
What?
There's first of all, there's 8 people who were involved in operating it. Like, there's 2 people inside of it.
What?
And there are still more people like helping with the movement on the outside. 2 people, including, Nakajima, who played Godzilla, and Tezuka played Anguirus, right? So like 2 of your recent heavy hitters. They're both in there, and this I think was the most people who've ever operated a single kaiju monster until like 1994.
Wow.
Like that's how elaborate doing this was.
So my first thought was like, is this somebody on all fours? Like, because the movement isn't smooth enough that it's just being like pulled on wheels, I don't think. Like, it does feel like it's moving and sort of crawling, but I couldn't see where that would be the case. So this is blowing my mind.
I think they're very hunched up, but I think once you kind of adjust the scale in your brain, I think the model cities around are like so much more crazy and impressive, because there's this kind of basic thing in these films that the bigger the monster, the smaller the miniatures. So when they eventually try and make Godzilla bigger and bigger, the miniatures have to get smaller, so they're actually less detail. So the closer up you're going, I mean, it looks like a model city, but I just think it was so interesting going into that screening with a bunch of people who were there to laugh, and coming out of it with a bunch of people who basically had been converted to like the kind of joy and the fun of tokusatsu. So those are my kind of Mothra things. I am hoping to get a Mothra tattoo, being like one of those people.
Yeah,
but I just love her. She's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me that Mothra that happened in that movie. I don't know that it would have happened with every movie. I don't know that it would have even happened with every like quote good serious kaiju movie, but I think Mothra is so clear in what's happening, and I think it's so like tight and well done and put together that at some point, I think watching that movie, you have to acknowledge that it's just like a good, well done movie, even if the special effects aren't your thing, or the tone isn't necessarily your thing. It's hard to get to the end of that movie and nitpick things just because you feel like nitpicking things.
Right.
I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a very accessible movie. Like, I think, even with if those weird, like, little tiny ladies in there, it still feels very like it's so straightforward. And I know that some of the things I was reading that like Honda had said about it was from the same Ishiro Honda book that I was citing a lot in the King Kong episode.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of the whole passage in that book about this movie too. And like one of the things that I think it really clicked into place for me, I'm like, oh, I really understand what they're doing with this, is that he was saying like we wanted to do something that was like for the whole family, like a Disney or Hollywood type of picture. And even I think there's another like later in life where he was like hoping that it maybe would get remade as like an animated, like a Disney style movie. And it's like, oh yeah, this movie is a fairy tale. Like if you look at it like it's a fairy tale, it is so like it makes so much sense, because there aren't really a lot of like moral grays in this movie.
Yeah.
It's very clear who's in the right and who's in the wrong and the lesson you're supposed to take. But I think that ends up making it like more universally accessible. You don't need to really be entrenched in kaiju stuff or toku or Japanese culture to see like the lessons that you're being taught here and like what side you're supposed to fall on. And I think that that's really a cool way to approach a movie like this.
Yeah. Yeah. And it has some of that lasting story power that like King Kong has and the original Godzilla has, for whatever, however those things have transformed over time, the story sort of persists because it's just a good classic story anybody can kind of pull something from and relate to.
Yeah.
I mean, I was reading that the producers of Toho at the time literally asked them to make a monster movie that women would like appeal to women because it was figured out that women not only went to the movies, I don't know if more, but they'd bring more people. Like if a woman went, then she'd probably bring her family, but she'd also probably bring friends and stuff, or dates. Whereas men would go more on their own. Right. I think it appeals to everyone personally, but I think from the start, you can kind of sense that with the themes. Yeah.
There's also literally more women in this movie than like any other movie that we've watched on the podcast so far. So like that helps too.
Well, there's one full grown one and then two tiny ones.
It's true. Which is, what?
Still more.
and then Mothra. So, there you go. Yeah. Full cast. I do think is, all of that said, like this, my understanding is that like the Japanese film industry was at like a really good place when this movie was coming out. So like this had like a wildly bigger budget than a lot of other movies at the time. So they were putting a lot into it. Star-studded cast, which we'll talk about, like all my guys are in this movie. So like they put a lot into it. One thing that was kind of interesting is that like when they were originally crafting it, Tanaka hired a novelist, Shinichiro Nakamura, to write a story for this movie when they were coming up with the idea of like just a moth monster. I think the idea for a moth monster was early on because it was like, well, if it's a moth, then we can actually play up transformation happening in this movie. It gets us more monsters out of it. And so Nakamura then goes to like a couple of other novelists, Takehiko Fukunaga, who's like a William Faulkner scholar is what he was cited as being famous for. And then Yoshi Hota, who'd written like a novel, of course, about American guilt over the atomic bombings. So there you go. So they all kind of collaborate on the story called The Glowing Fairies and Mothra, which was like serialized in January 1961. So like it's serialized like, right as this movie is going into production. And then Sekizawa, who goes on to write King Kong versus Godzilla and a number of other Godzilla movies, like takes that, kind of cherry picks stuff out of that script. Because apparently the script like was a lot more political. There were like 4 fairies instead of 2. There was a romance between like one of the guys and a fairy, which would have been weird. And all that's kind of cut out and kind of refined. And I think the idea being that like they really want to just sort of focus and hone in on making a much tighter movie, which I think works out really well. But one thing we didn't really talk about Sekizawa in the King Kong versus Godzilla episode, and I do think he's really interesting. For one, I think he becomes well known for being like the guy that Honda goes to for like lighter and softer scripts. So anytime you see like a more fantastical, funnier Godzilla movie, like he's usually the writer. But at the same time, he does have like wartime experience, and his wartime experience is mostly like starving on islands in the South Pacific that were like isolated. And I think that finds its way into his scripts where there's a lot of scripts like this movie where it's like a mysterious South Pacific island where weird stuff happens, because I think that's just what a lot of his experience was, which I find really interesting.
Huh.
Yeah, these will not be your last islands, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense to me. It's kind of like the fishing boats. Like, I'm going to see fishing boats forever, right? Like, it's just part of where we are and the setting for these things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, Sekizawa, I think, was responsible for like really just like being like, we should play up the fantasy in this. Honda was like, I like the radiation and story part of it, but like, sure, we'll do the fantasy. That's fine too. And I think we talked about this a little bit, but like, this does end up, because they're putting so much money into it, it has like some of the most detailed miniature work of like any Toho production up to that point. It's like 1/20th scale miniatures, identical to like actual like Shibuya neighborhoods and stuff, which is unreal.
Wow.
So wild. Yeah. Yeah. I think that Honda said he did want more elaborate sets on Infant Island, but I think that's at a certain point they started to run out of money. So it's like, instead you just get a couple of big plants that look a little slimy and some crystals, and that's kind of where it stops. But
I think that's okay. I thought what we saw of Infant Island looked pretty cool. It was sort of separate from how everything else looked. So I think it was still effective and still kind of hit the note that I would have assumed they were trying to hit.
I agree. Yeah. I have one thing I want to talk about for the ending, because there's some interesting stories, but I think we'll talk about that naturally when we talk about the plot. So I'm going to save that for later. What do y'all want to talk about the actual like Mothra designs?
Sure.
Now, the caterpillar and the Mothra itself.
Sure.
I mean, it rules, right? Like, it's so good.
I thought you were about to like drop a huge like trivia bomb on me.
I mean, we already started, and it's like elaborate and good.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it looks really cool. I mean, I was familiar with what Mothra looked like and the design and stuff, so it was cool to finally see it in action. It's also interesting because it is a very different type of action, right? So they're able to feature it in a different way, and you kind of get different looks at it than you typically would, at least the monsters I've seen so far, because they can kind of show it from every single angle and not necessarily have to worry about convincing you there's not a man inside of it, so you get some pretty good looks at it, and I think it is very cool design.
I think that's a pro, but I think as the series goes on, it can be a con. There's these types of monsters which don't have a performer inside, and I think it's used well here. I think there's later Mothras which really does feel like some, she's just like having a ball up
hanging there from the ceiling,
having a ball in the sky on her own, and like things are blowing around below, but you don't get a real sense of that being connected. Yeah. I think, to me, on this watch through, I was more impressed by the larval stage than I remember being, because that's the I don't have any toys of that, let's just say. It's a brown slug, and you're like, But I loved how it looked when it was swimming. I thought it was just shot really well. I loved how it popped out of its egg. I loved it's kind of like we were saying, just this. It has a very interesting way of both being a threatening monster that like is on a path of destruction, but it's so like determined. It has this like I don't know what it is about its expression, but you can't really hate it because it looks a little cute. It kind of gets a good balance of looking like a little baby, but you don't want to be crushed by it.
Right.
It still has its cute blue eyes, even as a larva.
Yeah, I love the blue eyes. Yeah, and it's so clearly, the intent isn't to kill. It's just like, you're in my way and I am just not stopping. Sorry.
Yeah.
You should have moved. The water one, like, we talk, there's like the 6 foot, 33 foot long costume is like the big one when it's on the Tokyo Tower. That's wild to me. But
oh my God.
The one in the water is like a little 3 foot, like self-propelled one that they use like a motorcycle engine. They basically built a little tiny boat for it.
I'm obsessed with this thing. Both versions of it. I'm obsessed with it.
It's so cool.
Wow. Yeah, it looked great in the water, and I think it surprised me how like compelling I think a larva, destroying a city looks like. I wasn't expecting it to be as compelling as it is,
and it's like silk sort of shot thing. It's really interesting. I mean, I've forgotten really the details, but I actually watched this with some commentary on.
Nice.
From a guy. Let me look it up. David Kalat.
Oh yeah, he wrote one of the books that I consistently cite.
I'm sure it's a lot of the same info, but it was just interesting. Like, you know, nowadays you write a script, the thing shoots a kind of silk stream thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And like back in the day, you're like, wait, how do we do that? Like, it's literally an invented substance. And so they made some kind of like foam air gun like thing, but
it was like rubber, like dissolving rubber paste, apparently, with some paint thinner in it or something, and then they just sprayed it through an airbrush, which it does not look like that on screen.
The little anecdote he said was that even though it looked good, there was no like way of really aiming it because it would just go all over the studio, and a lot of people's clothes were ruined. That's all I remember.
Oh my god. Wow.
But yeah,
I kind of like that though. It kind of worked out. It didn't feel like it was necessarily too chaotic for what was going on, because she was building this big sort of cocoon thing up against this tower, and you know, it ended up building up to this thing after looking sort of chaotic. I thought was cool.
Yeah.
I think in later films, and I think people's perception of Mothra is that she's this like small thing on Godzilla's shoulder or something. But like this Mothra is bigger than Godzilla. The scale is so much like the Godzilla of this kind of era. And I think as Mothra intersects with Godzilla, she kind of gets smaller and smaller to make him the big dog. But I like how just kind of chunky she is.
Typical. Don't make yourself smaller, Mothra. Don't minimize yourself.
I know, it's upsetting. It's Godzilla's just being an insecure man in Hollywood.
Yeah, absolutely.
But she has such a big chunky head, like the moth version. Yes. She's like not dainty at all. She's just so like chunky. Like if you think about a moth, I always think about like the head is not like a big ball on the end. It's like a tiny little face. I don't know. It's interesting because I mentioned my tattoo. The idea of the tattoo would be like, it's a moth to anybody else looking, but to those who know, hanky code, you know. But it doesn't look like a moth. It's like a really weird sort of deformed thing. So
yeah,
which I think makes sense from a couple perspectives, right? One, giving something like a big head and big eyes in proportion to its body is like cute and makes it a little bit more relatable and approachable. You see this in things like Pokemon all the time. Like there are so many Pokemon where it's just like, my head is a massive oval and my body's tiny, right? But then also, I mean, Godzilla also isn't just a lizard, you know what I mean? Right. So to take her and make her something a bit more fantastical and a bit more monstrous, I think makes a lot of sense.
One thing that I found really interesting, this is like just useless bits of trivia, but I thought it was really cool. It's like the way that they create her like kind of compound eyes, you know, look like eyes. It's, you know, they got some plastic. It was Kaizu Murase is the suit designer for Mothra. He's worked on tons of Toku stuff. He's worked on, you know, sculpting for Godzilla and everything too. But like they just took like plastic basically, and while it was like still soft, when they were actually like making the soft plastic, just poke some dents into it and then put a light behind it, and that's it, right? What I thought was really interesting is then they use that exact same method for the original Kamen Rider to make his helmet, to make the eyes on the original Kamen Rider suit, which
that's fascinating, because I was just going to say one of the nice things about her not having an actor in there is you don't have to worry about whether you can see through the compound eyes, but I guess they do the same thing anyway.
Rider's like, now you got to ride a motorcycle. Right. That's that cool. Good
Figure that out.
Yeah. But it is cool to see a kaiju like this that, it's not a person in a suit. It is just a monster that is flying in the air. And I do think I feel like, to me, especially for this time period, given what had been made at the time, it does feel like something really different and special. Like I kind of can see why this was like a big budget movie that was sort of moving the needle forward in some way, because it does feel different when it's not a person walking in a monster suit. As much as I love that, and as much as that can look amazing, there is something that feels very distinct to have just a flying moth in the sky that's not humanoid at all, and I think looks good, you know. Like there is something really kind of magical about that.
Yeah, well, what we've talked about to this point with regards to the suits is the ways that they make a practical suit that is just, you know, a 5 foot something dude feel heavy and gargantuan. And this, you have to figure out how to make it feel a little bit lighter, if anything, you know? So it is like a completely different sort of way of trying to make something giant and imposing without being able to just make it stomp harder, you know?
Yeah. Fully agree.
And that last shot where she's just like, not last shot, but when she's just on the ground, when she's actually grounded and you see all the people in the foreground, incredible. She looks huge and totally imposing. And like, if you didn't get a sense of the majesty before that moment, like it is on full display there.
Yeah. Have these little 1 foot ladies like having to ride on her. Like the biggest, I love the contrast of Mothra. It's like the biggest monster ever. And like the littlest ladies alongside her. It's so fun. Speaking of the little ladies, let's talk some character stuff.
Yes, please.
Doug, what was your thought when you first saw the little ladies on screen?
I don't remember what my thought was.
You didn't know anything about Mothra mythology or anything, right?
No, I did not. And I don't know that we hadn't seen any inhabitants of the island to that point, right? Those are the first, I think those are the first people we see on the island. So I guess my first thought was just like, that's who these inhabitants are. Is that the island just has little fairy people on it. And I guess it does, but it's not just them. That was, and the first time you see them, they do that like screeching song instead of like a sort of more conventional singing song. So I didn't really know what to make of them, but I thought they were neat, you know?
Yeah.
Are they actually twins or sisters?
Yes.
Okay. Because I was going to say, if they're not, they made them up to look remarkably similar. But okay, that makes sense. And there is something, you know, about putting some twins on screen and doing something odd with them, whether that's fair to twins in real life or not.
I believe they are one of the main reasons, like we said in the books, there's 4 fairies, and then in the movie there's 2, because they were kind of famous in their own rights as like singing. They're called the Peanuts.
Yeah.
No way.
Emmy and Yumi Ito was their names. They were already immensely popular, and the part of this movie too is I think Toho had a deal with Columbia. Like I think that's, you know, because that's who ends up releasing it overseas, and the Peanuts also had a contract with Columbia because they had overseas appeal because they would sing like American pop song, like covers of American pop songs, and that had some weird niche interest in America at the time. So like there was crossover appeal there. I think that was one reason. But also, like they were just immensely popular. So it's like, here's your weird big name, like, you know, character or actors in this movie.
Yeah.
They're on,
I think
they're on Spotify.
Well, you know, I'm adding them.
Apparently twins are rare in Japan.
Oh, really?
I heard that. I Googled it. Apparently it's true. I have no idea why. But so I think there was sort of a novelty to them being like stars, more than like you couldn't really become famous for being twins. Maybe in America.
Mary-Kate and Ashley, I guess, but it's rare, I guess.
And they will be playing the twins in the Mothra American reboot.
Of course.
Can't wait. That's a very different vibe.
You know what? There would definitely be something unsettling about them doing that. There could definitely feel some element of magic.
I have no memory of my reaction to them because I've loved Godzilla movies my whole life, so I've just always known that she comes with 2 little like priestesses, and it's definitely it's always funny to show people and be like, oh yeah, that is strange.
Yeah.
And it is like the whole plot of the film is that, you know, they are unique and stealable.
Yeah, it's interesting. I you know, we couldn't really predict that much about Mothra because we didn't watch anything Mothra prior to it to sort of build on. So I think where I landed was like based purely on her reputation preceding her, right? And that she's beloved, and that I don't know that I've ever seen anyone talk about her as like really a monster in the sort of conventional destructive sense. And so I assumed that she was a problem that needed to be solved because she was in the city destroying things. But that she wasn't doing it because she was malicious or anything, but had no idea how that would actually come to happen. And it is really a straightforward, like, you stole something, in this case these people from our island, and she's going to get them back. And the clarity that I talked about with the story, and I think what you were talking about, Derek, with the fairy tale element of it, that sort of universal thing, I mean, that's something I really liked about it. It was very King Kong vibes. And I'm not mad at it.
More of a King Kong movie than like King Kong versus Godzilla.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah. And like, and I think they do it really, really well, and maybe in some ways even better than King Kong does at points. So, interesting that they were just like the big, massive sort of plot driver of this movie. When I first saw them, I wouldn't have assumed.
Yeah, when you were predicting the plot last episode, you didn't suggest that an evil businessman from Rolisica was going to steal them for his entertainment show. Because
why didn't I just say
he has a history of stealing women for entertainment is mentioned.
Yeah, what the fuck?
I quite like, I mean, we're doing the characters in a really weird order, but I actually like that this has a villain, like a full-on bad guy. And I think he's hilarious. I think it's a really fun performance. But it's not subtle. He's the baddie. Right. He must be stopped.
Yeah. I like that. And what's funny is that, watching it sort of like, some of this, it's a little on the nose how evil he is, but then I'm like, it's 2024. Is it actually that on the nose? Like, I feel like I can just see certain billionaires saying these things and really stealing women from, remote islands and being like, ha ha ha,
Well, and as very classic, traditional, straightforward villain as he is, like, it's not really that over the top. Like, he's relatively restrained in like how like big villain he ends up being, which I think works really, really well. And he's just like a fun guy not to like as you watch him. Like, he does a really good job of doing that, where he's charismatic, but you don't really like him because of the stuff that he's doing,
Right.
So he's called Nelson, and for a big portion of the film, they're like, who's Nelson? Why is Nelson here? And they're like, oh, he's in charge. I'm like, yeah, but is he a scientist or like a businessman or what? And then I actually think he goes on a kind of interesting journey. I'm not sure, like, it's not subtle and he's still a baddie, but I think there's actually a very interesting kind of moment at the end where it kind of like shows his view of people, and I think there's actually stuff to like. I think there's ambiguity about him that I think is kind of interesting. I know we literally just said he's a cartoon villain, but I think at the end you get a kind of moment of either his guilt or his like full blown, I'm the only person that matters and everyone else should die. Like,
right. Yeah. Cause he's this guy who does, this terrible thing that by the end of the movie, everybody agrees is terrible, but he thinks he can just outrun that. Right. Like he is a more important person or a more skilled, intelligent person, whatever he thinks he can outrun any sort of consequence because he doesn't deserve it in the first place. But that one little moment at the end where, he conflates the crowd that is now storming him with the people on the island that we end up seeing they just murder tons of, is like your one little window into what might be happening internally with him. And it is fascinating that it's not abundantly clear whether it is remorse or, I guess just further discussed,
or a sense that
but it's right there, and it's right before he before he ends up dying.
It's kind of like a moment of him realizing he can't keep outrunning Infant Island and what he's done. I think it's interesting. He's also played by someone called Jerry Ito, which sounds like Jared Leto.
Yes. Oh no! Better than Jared, because he's really interesting for being in this movie though.
Yeah,
he's a Japanese American. He'd mostly act on like Broadway and like on like live TV in New York. Like, and my understanding is that he didn't speak Japanese and like he was speaking these lines phonetically for this movie.
Whoa.
Which I think if you listen to it with that in mind, his performance, like I don't speak Japanese, but like I can kind of tell like the way that he's saying things feels more, I don't know, like very pronounced in a way, but like it probably helped his performance, honestly, because he's such a big villain,
in the commentary, it was mentioned that all the actors from Rolisica, something we'll talk about.
Oh boy, yes.
Were people who either didn't speak Japanese that great and had frequently played kind of foreigners in these films. I think a few of them had played like Chinese gangsters and stuff, where their accent was really kind of evident or whatever. I have actually watched this film with a dub, and I think the dub does a good job of like playing that evil role. But I don't know, he is very watchable. I think actually I think we're gonna move on to the Golden Trio. I think this film to me has really memorable and clear characters and actors who are just like really fun to look at.
Yes. This is
1000%.
I was so refreshed after King Kong versus Godzilla, which my biggest complaint with that cast was like that they were not very clearly defined, except for like one dude was extremely defined. In this one, I know everybody's name. I know what their deal is. I know why they're there. I know how they intersect, their relationships with each other. They do a great job of showing you who these characters are and why they're consequential to the story. Even like Shinji, the younger brother, I'm like, I get you, and I like when you're on screen. Like,
and he plays a role.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, they're all good. Frankie Sakai plays Snapping Turtle. Fukuda. I fucking love the name Snapping Turtle. It's so good.
I love him so much. I love him.
He's so good.
Fukuda is the man.
I like that he's the protagonist. I mean, I think he plays second fiddle a little bit at times, but he's our way through the story, and would usually be that kind of role would be such a kind of secondary, like, laugh at him. And I think, I mean, I'm sure you're going to fill us all in. He had like a history of like slapstick and being a comedian. Yeah. But I think he doesn't overdo it in this. He's still playing a real person. It's not all just
he's
like
genuinely funny.
Yeah. He's playing a quirky, eccentric person, and he does it well because he has a background in comedy, it sounds like. I mean, he's basically like what I think he is the sort of better version of like, what if you made Kobayashi in Raids the actual protagonist? Like if you let him feature more, as this character who really sort of connects easily and is like sort of the heart of things. Fukuda gets to be that, and it's really exciting to see, and he's really fun to watch.
He
gets to be a hero. He saves a baby from a bridge or a dam that's about to be destroyed.
I love that. I love that he gets to do that. I did kind of laugh that like, this lady dropped her whole ass baby and like, didn't realize it for such a long time. Like the actress was great when like she realized it, is like freaking out about it. But I'm like, you should have looked back once as you were walking. It's a whole baby.
I'll defend her by saying you have never been in that exact situation.
Fair.
That is definitely leave the baby and run kind of situation.
Fair. Yeah. But yeah, no, I love him. He's so good in this movie. The English, I watched the English dub too as well.
Please tell me that they don't do terrible things with him.
All I was going to say is that they just changed his name from Snapping Turtle to Bulldog, which I think makes sense for an American audience. That's a very American journalist name. Sure. I just was sort of like, but Snapping Turtle is so much better. Like, I love that nickname so much.
Yeah, it's great. And maybe it's because Bulldog makes more sense to me, that Snapping Turtle has like a novelty to it.
There's a little novelty to it.
Yeah, but it was great. Oh, so good. Yeah. So good.
He's good. Our other kind of like co-lead, Chujo, Hiroshi Kazuma. I almost screamed when I saw him in the movie because it's so funny, because they play up this whole joke of like he doesn't want to be seen by cameras or whatever, so they're hiding his face for a while, and they show his face, and I'm like, oh, that's why you didn't want to show your face, because you didn't want people to know that you were the hottest linguist alive on this
Literally,
planet.
he says like, oh, it's not a face worth photographing, and then the most beautiful man who's ever been in any of these movies.
Right? Sir, you're just tired of being photographed constantly, I think. I know.
He's good. I mean, he's the more stoic, traditional character, but I like that little scene. I like that they just also introduce all the characters really well. I actually think a tiny criticism I have with the 1954 original is I definitely had to watch it a couple of times to kind of really understand what the relationship dynamic was, because I think it's subtle and I watched it too young, but I think it that film introduces the characters slightly sloppily. I think they sort of walk in a room and you're not quite sure who's the lead for a while. I like that each character in this, you're like, bam. I mean, it's clear script writing, but it's like, I'm a journalist who never leaves a story. I'm a hot, sad linguist who is like all on my own. And it's like, I like to take photos of everything because what did she say? She says she doesn't trust anything she doesn't see through her camera, basically.
Yeah.
And then he says like the sound of a camera shutter sounds like a guillotine. And I'm like,
yeah. But then she counters that, which is sort of like, well, guillotines actually don't make sound. And I'm like, what?
Guillotines are silent now. Watch out.
Yeah. So we also have a little Lois Lane.
Yeah.
Ace photographer.
Yeah, Kyoko Kagawa plays her. I mean, she doesn't really do any other like kaiju stuff. She's mostly in like a lot of Kurosawa movies, which I found interesting. I even saw her. I was like, I feel like I recognize her, and it's like, oh yeah, because I've seen any Kurosawa movie. But you know, I guess out of like the core cast, like she has like the least to do out of it, but she's still I still really like her anytime that she's on screen, because I do think that they have a lot of fun with the kind of Lois Lane, like I guess Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen like combo vibe that she's playing here.
Yeah, well, I mean, she gets to be like a really determined sort of like career woman, as corny as that sounds, but like she is, right? She's a photographer who's doing it because she cares deeply about like getting the pictures, and she is shown like they show things to support that. She sneaks in her little camera, you know, after getting a bunch of cameras taken away from her, and she manages to I guess validate stories because she's willing to do those little things.
Yeah. She gets like the final joke of the movie too. Like she gets to be like, I forgot to take pictures this whole time. That was really cute. It's a funny little joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like her. And not a huge character, but I love seeing Takashi Shimura in anything as like the editor. Like Dr. Yamane's back. And actually in general for all the journalism stuff, I like, it's such an easy, especially if you're doing, you know, a movie like this where characters are almost kind of playing archetypes. It's so easy for the journalists to just be like, we're journalists, we have to get the scoop, and that's the whole vibe. But I like that all of the journalists, including like the editor of their newspaper that is like a hard ass at certain points, by the end of the movie comes around just sort of like, yeah, anyone can cover this. Like, go save the world. Like that's what's more important. Like they all are like humans, which I love that. I love that that's part of this.
Yeah, it's really cool that's just really cool. I agree with that. Like you get to see these characters sort of transform into this heroic trio, even though they have like these very specific jobs that they were introduced with, you know. They kind of break beyond those things to be these hero protagonists.
Yeah.
Feels like there's always a reason for each of them to be in the scene, both like script wise, but also like logic wise. Like the people would invite these three people into the room. And yeah, I don't want to spoil anything, but you may see some of them again.
Well, here's the I know Derek would ask this at the end. I already was prepared to predict, probably because more heart than head, but I was like, I feel like we will see at least some of the trio, if not just the trio again. They're so good. So I was prepared to predict already.
Yeah. This is like not even necessarily part of the conversation, but one thing I found kind of funny is like, there's another guy that like the radiation specialist person, Dr. Harada, who's another character that is frequently in scenes, but like I watched the movie for the first time, then I watched it again, and between those times I like forgot that this guy even existed. Like I was reading the cast list and I'm like, who is Dr. Harada? And then I watched it again looking for him and I'm like, oh, he's in like almost every scene with this trio, just like not really doing anything. Like I don't even think it's a criticism, it's just like he's just there. It just feels like there's no reason for him to be there ever.
He's like important at the start, but then they don't force him into things after his role is sort of fulfilled, I think, is probably what happens.
But he's still like around is what's funny. Like he'll just be in scenes not saying anything, basically.
Yeah, my only note next to his name in my notes is mustache.
Same. It's like radiation doctor, mustache.
Right. It's so funny. And I just for fun, like previous people we've seen before, probably couldn't miss him in this one. Akihiko Harada, Sarazawa, is just one of the doctors treating the radiation.
Just always
dudes.
Around.
Always, I mean, you know,
I love
you
to
can't
see
miss
it.
him in this. Kenji Sahara plays Fujita in King Kong vs. Godzilla. He's like one of the helicopter pilots. I didn't recognize him. And then Suichi Hirose, who's King Kong, is a dock worker.
Nice. That's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll find little cameos. But
Yeah.
cool. Okay. Well, we can go wherever we want now. There's plenty of stuff to talk about in this movie. What do y'all want to talk about now?
Should we, like last episode, not leave the big negative conversation till the end? Let's do it now.
That's fair.
I think, if you've listened to the King Kong versus Godzilla episode, this has the same issue where they go to an island. There's a lot of blackface. I think what frustrates me more about this is that I think this is better, but that's why it frustrates me more. Yeah. Because I think what the themes of this film are doing.
Yes.
What I think, not that blackface is ever good. I think what would have been interesting is if the only time it was used was when the fairies are on stage and there's this like dance number happening behind them, which is clearly Japanese people in blackface, but that's the same as on the island. I think, and also because the Peanuts are not in blackface, and it's like very bizarre. It's meant to be this Polynesian island they mention a few times. They talk a bit about this theory that Polynesia is all one kind of country, right? And when you go there, I think what they've done to the actors to make them appear darker skinned is so not only bad from like a filmmaking point of view, it's like so badly applied that when I first saw them, I thought it was like jungle camouflage or something.
Right. I did too.
Or like,
I think this movie makes it, for the exact reason you're talking about, Hamish, the sort of misunderstanding immediately what they're even trying to accomplish, makes it even more frustrating that they do it in the first place. I didn't get to that point in the King Kong versus Godzilla one because I hadn't thought of like exactly practically what you would do to distinguish. But yeah, just jungle camouflage. There you go. You have a very clear distinction between like who's who in any given scene. If you really have to make it obviously clear who the people on the island are, right? Like, it's so strange.
It's sad because I think because I think there's lots of really interesting stuff happening. I think with King Kong versus Godzilla and the King Kong stories, they play a lot more on this like colonial lost world sort of the savages of the uncivilized world. I think this is different because I think the actual what they're trying to say with this is these are modern people living in our worlds that we just should respect and leave alone. I think there's stuff in this that can be linked to how the people who lived in the island surrounding the nuclear test sites were either not informed or they were moved. The people of Bikini Atoll were like moved to several islands over and over again that had like, they were starved basically. They were taken to islands that had no food, no place to rebuild their lives. And I think it's this idea of just like big businessmen from America or Russia, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Just using people and abusing them and just like tossing them aside, kidnapping the pretty ones to put on display and leaving the rest to kind of starve or suffer. And I think all of these themes are really interesting. It's just such a shame that when you recommend a non-kaiju fan who can kind of like to watch any of this, you've got to get over that really big hump.
I think the thing that frustrated me in particular about this movie is the theme part of it, right? Like the themes are so clear, the moral is so clear, the villain is so clear, what was done wrong is so clear, and the people on the island don't just feel like a prop or a set. They're an integral part of what's going on, and what's taken from them specifically is such an integral part of what's going on that it's doubly frustrating that they're still doing such a like blatantly racist thing. And people can discuss all day long about like historical context and all that sort of stuff, but it's still not good, and they didn't need to do it,
Right. Well, because the movie's point of view is so sympathetic towards the people on this
Right.
island.
They're
Like,
not
so
treated
intentionally.
like they are
Yeah.
in King Kong versus Godzilla or King Kong, where
Right.
they are, you as the audience are not supposed to feel for those people. You're supposed to be scared of them, or you're supposed to
Or
find
kinda
them
make fun of
exotic,
them.
or find
make
them
fun
silly.
of them when you give them cigarettes and stuff like that.
Right.
In this case, like these are not they're not stupid. They know more what's going on than anyone else in the movie does 90% of the time. And like the core tragedy of the movie isn't just that, you know, these fairies get kidnapped. It's that like this, you know, basically a whole tribe of people on this island are fucking just gunned down in cold blood.
My God.
And it's really brutal to watch that. And I think that it's like really powerful. It's just like but it's so, and like that coupled, you know, with like the flashes of the people's
Right.
faces, with Nelson's face and everything. It's like all that stuff is so powerful. But then you have like the blackface stuff on top of it that like makes it hard to get past that, when it's like, but this is so good though. Like it's such an important message.
Yeah.
Like why did you have to throw in that
I know.
makeup just to ruin all of it?
It's so frustrating because
Yeah.
just the how it all plays out, the writing of it, their role, everything is
Mm-hmm.
so great, and it doesn't take away what's great. It just is an impossible thing to ignore. That is just decidedly the opposite of great.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think there were films from this time when it would be the hero going to this island and shooting the indigenous population
Yeah.
because they were being attacked. I think it's really interesting that it's the cartoonish villain who we're never supposed to root for.
Right.
And I think the fact that the film ends with giving back what was taken to, you know, an island community, and that's how we end. That's how like we saved the day because we like learnt. I mean, our heroes don't have to learn that lesson. They didn't steal anything, but
Yeah.
I just think, yeah, it's a shame. And I don't want to say this concretely. I think this may be the last time it's this extreme. We go back to Mothra's Island. Spoilers. I don't ever remember this being like that.
Yeah. I don't recall anything else like that either. Like King Kong, you know, King Kong versus Godzilla is like the example in the Godzilla series, but I don't feel like it really comes up like this again.
Well, and like if it did moving forward, my hope is that in the same way, I know this happened before King Kong versus Godzilla did, but the tone of King Kong versus Godzilla is pretty different, I think, than this one is. And I think it sounds weird to say, and I don't mean to excuse what they're doing, but I do think these folks are treated with a lot more respect in their depiction than the folks in King Kong versus Godzilla are. I feel like these folks aren't just there to be like exotic items, whereas I feel like a lot of times on King Kong versus Godzilla there's like these extended scenes that I'm just like, I think you're just trying to like show off these exotic people, you know, in wildly inaccurate ways.
I'm not the biggest fan, neither the biggest hater of the like the legendary pictures films, the Godzilla v Kong films.
Yeah.
But to their credit, I think they're the first time any King Kong movie has made a Skull Islander a character, which like Peter Jackson didn't do, this like the 70s King Kong didn't do.
Oh,
it's like
Peter Jackson's is such a strange choice.
It's like,
Not
what
that
if
we're talking about that, but
what if we made them more scary? And I'm like, okay. Yeah, it's interesting that it took that long to actually make someone from one of your main settings be a person. So it's a journey, and I think, you know, we've already teased that there's more islands to come, but there's actually quite a range of different stories they do with it. And I think the general theme that Honda and the film are like, I think it's clear to me that the theme is like the greed of capitalism and the kind of destruction of nature and the thinking that you kind of own anything you come across because you've got guns.
yeah.
He literally just picks them up, and I think there's a shot when he picks the fairies up, and they look like little Barbie dolls, and it's a bit funny, but it's like really brutal. It's really like,
I like gasped when I first saw that, because it's
Me
like,
too.
oh, you're not even like not leading up to this. It's like he just fucking bends down and just grabs them, and I'm like, what? Yeah, it's like so violating, you know.
And what's great is immediately and every single time people are disgusted with what he's doing, right? The reaction in the movie, in the setting when he does that is one of, oh my God, dude, what are you doing? You know?
Yeah.
Or there's a part where they're talking about who Nelson is and somebody describes him as an artifact stealer and they say it with like disgust, you know, like, and the person they're talking to is like, oh, gross. Like, I love that this movie makes it so abundantly clear that that's a bad thing to do and that it's a gross thing to do.
Yeah, it's part of his backstory that he went to the Amazon to take women for entertainment.
Yeah.
And it's so creepy.
They just like throw that line out and it's like, there what like I just it's I mean there's we've said it a million times, there's like no bones about who's the good guy and the bad guy in the movie, but I love that about it. You know, I mean, and even you could argue that's unrealistic or whatever, but I really love this entire everyone in this research party except for him have like this mutual agreement that it's sort of like, we should just like keep this a secret. We're not going to we're not going to bother these islanders, let them live their lives. We're not going to tell you, I'm a journalist and I'm not even going to report the story. Like, we're just going to keep it a secret. Like, that everyone is on the same page about like, about that maybe colonialism is bad. Like, I don't know. I found it, I was like, finally someone fucking said it in a movie. Like, I love that there's like no ambiguity there. And that's just very refreshing.
He has a line where he says, the fairies aren't human, they're merchandise.
Yes.
Barf.
Creepy.
It's terrible.
And
also, I know you say like people might look at this and say that it's like unrealistic or over the top, but like people still do that. Like people still like think that way. It might be more subtle or more calculated, but that's still business. That's still selling people as products. Like that's, I mean, it's not
he's like saying
wild.
He's saying what they're all thinking, really, ultimately. And like I also love this movie with him. They deal with this idea of like this one corporate dude being able to go over the heads of the government, he has control over the expedition because he paid off the government and everyone has to bow down to him because he has all the money, to the point that eventually the government is like, the Roskillian government is like, well, we got to defend our rights and property. And it's like at the end, like, which is, true to life. Like, you have actual corporations who are basically running the country that they're in because they have more power than the actual like ruling body, just because they have all the money, And
again, the people who have to deal with him hate it, which is such a stark contrast from Denham, who like they revere in King Kong. Even if he's like a little bit weird and eccentric, they're sort of like, oh, interesting, he's this filmmaker, and like, wow, can't wait to see what he does. Like, no, they are so annoyed with this guy, and they're like, why does he get to control things? Why do I have to report to him? Who even is he?
This film doesn't like, it's interesting. It doesn't create this fake country in order to just like demonize all of them. Like, there's a lot of good Rossilicans or whatever. There's a lot of good, good people there. And it's interesting. I mean, should we talk about Rolisica?
Yeah, I was wondering that, honestly, because you hear about Rolisica and you meet a couple people from Rolisica before you actually get a bigger picture of what Rolisica is. And so I was kind of worried. I was like, what are they creating this country for? Because you don't get a wider picture of it. But yeah, by the time you have a full picture of the whole story they're telling and a bigger picture of Rolisica, I was pleased that it doesn't just exist to be the other country that they can kind of dump on or do anything bad with,
Yeah, I didn't really find much on like any like super controversial specifics on like why they did this. I think it really was just like, we want to have a representation of like kind of a Western culture that we want to do this sort of capitalist critique on, without necessarily like demonizing places that we're going to try to like export the movies to. I
figured that's
especially
what it
given
was.
The deal that they have with Columbia, like already an American production company, So
I think it's funny because it's literally the exact same thing America does to like Eastern Europe and stuff like and like Africa and stuff. There's always making but like, it's funny to invent an America. Like, it's funny from an American point of view to be like, oh, there's just another one of those countries. It's like, is it Canada? Is it like, and the thing is,
it's like a combination of like Russia and America too, which I think is really interesting.
It is strange. Like, that feeling is really strange. I mean, as somebody who lives in the United States, we are not confronted with that in that direction very much. Even when it's like not meant to be sort of like an ambiguous invented country you can kind of do whatever you want with. It still feels weird to me that a Pokemon region is based on, New York City in the United States. Like, it just feels strange because we're not used to being on the receiving end of it. It's fascinating to see. I want to see more examples of it.
I mean, I loved Pokemon Sword and Shield because set in the UK. There was lots of funny little references.
That's great. It's funny that our reactions were sort of different. Like, I just was sort of like, ew, why would you want a region based on the United States?
The thing that I find interesting is that, okay, so it's this, it's not been translated into English, but in the original serialized story, I think the name was even more kind of Rush America. Like it was.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't write down. I forgot. I didn't write down what it was. I don't remember but it was.
It was much more overt, which is interesting because it's basically implying a world where the Cold War doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. Two countries on the other side of the planet are the same country, and it's in a kind of odd way. It's like feels in a way like they're trying to avoid politics, but in doing so make it like extremely political. The like factoid that I think is interesting that I'm sure Derek has in his notes is it was like Columbia, the American funder, that said, "Ooh, can you have Mothra destroy an American city at the end?"
What?
Yep. Oh, there's a whole thing about that. Yeah, but keep going.
But this is what's interesting. It's like you watch this film and it feels like that's really pointed. That like an atomic test happened on an island. It drew people there who stole the native population, and now Mothra is like killing what looks like New York. And to find out that it was the Americans being like, can one of these movies look like it takes place in the US? Make something that I think was done to try and not be political in any way. Not in any way, but like downplay that element as much as possible and make Americans happy. Ends up making something that feels quite kind of radical. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
agree.
I think so. Because, well, one, it's really funny that Columbia was the ones like, what if it destroyed an American city, right? Wouldn't that be fun? Like, it almost feels like Taco should have been an American in King Kong versus Godzilla as like the guy who's missing the point, you know? But also, I do think it ends up being kind of radical. I think the fact that there are other movies in this genre that directly sort of address, you know, the Soviet Union and the United States as these superpowers, and then there's this one that just smashes them together as if they are not different from each other. You know what I mean? Like, these are two superpowers who are constantly sort of like, we're not them. This movie says, yeah, you are. You're all just the same. Yeah. You're all the same country.
I kind of love that.
Yeah. You're just the superpowers playing with the world, you know? Not that that's overtly in here or anything, but I think it's hard not to sort of pull that away when you start thinking about it.
And I think it's interesting because you see the wide shots of the city that feel very New York, and then the like the ground level scene feels like a small European village.
It's so funny.
And I think again to go to that point of like seeing, I kind of like the story beat that they recognize the cross on a church as being the same thing as the like symbol on Infant Island in a way of, and it's not done in a kind of like, ooh, God is everywhere. It's done in a like, we worship that, they worship this. Like we're not that different. It's kind of an interesting, I think a theme of this film isn't America did this and we're mad at them. I think it's actually like, you know, globalism in a way. It's like we like all have to be together and work together and see each other as people with the same like problems in order to get out of this situation. That's one way of looking at it.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think the intersecting of these different cultures is both the thing that causes the problem and the thing that solves the problem. Like, I think that makes a lot of sense. We're not separate from each other. Our problems aren't just our problems. Your problems aren't just your problems. And I didn't even think of the I don't know why it's highlighted extremely, but the cross and sun thing being the exact same or very similar to the symbol for Mothra on the island. Like, obviously I noticed, you can't not notice it, but what you actually pull from it, I think that's awesome. It's kind of blowing my mind a little bit. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think even like isn't like one of the last lines of the movie just like, oh, we needed to have until we have like, international cooperation and peace. Like the monsters are going to keep attacking. Like I think that globalism aspect of it, I think, is actually like really on point. Yeah.
The monsters will keep attacking.
Right.
They sure will.
And also Mothra is Jesus and died for our sins, of course,
Yeah.
I mean, I just from like an aesthetic level, I actually love seeing a different city being destroyed, and I think it makes the final scene feel really different and unique.
I agree.
You do see a few different cities, I guess, in the series, but it is mostly Japan, and yeah, it's nice. It's cool. I like it.
Yeah.
I agree. I thought it was a fun surprise to see these different settings. Like even just Nelson's chateau or whatever that was. Like looking out, ranch. Like looking out the window, it's like a whole nother different part of Relistica versus the city in Relistica. Yeah, it's cool to see those.
When he's there, you can literally hear like cows mooing in the background just to show like he's on a farm.
I like the Relisican flag is a golden eagle on top of some stripes, of some red and white stripes.
Yes. Incredible. Like, A+. The fun, like kind of like weird anecdote I have for the ending. So like, we talked about how like Columbia wanted it to take place in an American looking city, Newkirk City. I love the name of that city. But like when you watch it, I mean, that's a really elaborate city set, and it was very, very, very expensive to do. And before they did it, they were kind of figuring that it actually was going to be too expensive. Like Toho was like, I don't think we can do this, y'all. So they actually like were going to seek permission. Like they sent a letter, because this is back in 1962. They sent a letter to Columbia asking to have permission to not have the finale take place in Newkirk City, rewrote, and then actually reshot this ending where Nelson takes hostages, I think including Shinji, which would line up with Shinji getting tied up. He actually kidnaps him, takes him to the mountains with hostages, and then Mothra shows up to the mountains, and then the gusts of wind from her wings knocks Nelson into a volcano, and that's how he dies. Which I do kind of love the idea of it is a little bit unsatisfying that no characters including Mothra are present when Nelson dies, and I'm like, I kind of wish Mothra could have done the final kill, but I get it. So Mothra was actually going to kill him, and so they film that, but then after they film it, Columbia then comes back to him and sort of like, no, it's got to be the American city, y'all. So then they still had to go back and then actually film the Newkirk City stuff, which we end up getting at the end of the day.
Yeah, I like the version we got, and I do think it's more satisfying than just knocking him into a volcano, as fun as that would be to watch.
It would be fun to watch,
right?
But this makes more sense in the grander story of the movie, I guess.
Because you get to see the scene of people really turning on him, his own people turning on him, right? Like it really is not about Japan versus Realistica. It's about this guy and the horrible things he's doing that have now affected everybody else. And so the fact that he's basically devoured by, the people as opposed to Mothra or another monster, I think is fantastic.
Why was the last thing he does is try to steal an old man's cane before the cops shoot him? Why was he stealing that old guy's cane? I did not understand that at all. What was he doing at that point?
Just an asshole. Just get out of my way, old man. I don't know.
What a jerk. The other anecdote about that ending, so they film the ending in the mountains. Apparently, they throw a dummy, down a ravine to shoot the volcano part. Of course, classic. But really, they left the dummy down in the ravine, and then later on, a hiker walked by, thinking it was a dead body.
Oh no!
Called the cops. A whole team goes down to retrieve this body, thinking someone fell or committed suicide or something, only to find that it was a dummy. And Toho got in a lot of hot water because of that, apparently.
Oh jeez. Clean up your mess.
Seriously, yeah.
Don't litter.
This is basically unrelated, but I was reading that in the giant Toho water tank that they film with the water scenes in, there was just live fish in there as well. And there's they kept on trying to get them out, but they'd always just fish would show up in it.
They would just show up.
And
is this a tank that's connected to water,
I don't know,
an aquarium?
I know that they had to cut some shots because just a fish, a normal sized fish, with
giant fish,
swim past.
It's so funny.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah.
One thing I was going to briefly mention is this concept of a cinematic universe. And
Oh yes, please.
I think sometimes fans nowadays like to be like, it was the first cinematic universe, which it wasn't. But I also think it's a different way of thinking. Like, it's not the same as the Marvel Cinematic Universe or even the Monsterverse today. I think it's much more... It's sort of unintentional. I mean, if this was an actual cinematic universe, I don't think they would be recasting actors as different characters every single film.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think there's some interesting, almost like ways to look back on it and like read those threads, those kind of unintentional threads. So one example is that even though obviously that Mothra is going to cross over, when you're watching this film, do you feel like it's a film in which Godzilla attacked Tokyo like a couple of times? Or do you...
No, I think it's a very standalone thing. I think there's a moment where they call Mothra like one of the worst monsters, or like before they see her and before she's there, I think they predict that she'll be one of the worst monsters they've seen. I feel like that's one of the only times, and maybe at the end there, where they even acknowledge that the world has monsters, and they don't get specific enough, I think, for you to really stop down on that and decide that this is that same world as Godzilla or that same world as any other given monster. It feels pretty standalone.
There is one through line that I think is kind of interesting. So there is a couple of movies between Godzilla and Mothra called The Mysterians, which had a sequel called Battle in Outer Space.
Okay.
And they do have a kaiju type thing in it, but more they're like spaceships and UFOs. And The Mysterians is about some aliens coming here and saying, can we marry your women? It's a bit weird.
Great. I bet that one's squeaky clean as far as all the themes and takeaways.
But in those films, there is a prolonged sequence about the development of heat rays on tanks. They are like, we'll build this will be the thing to stop the aliens. And in this film, Relistica just like has some, and it doesn't really... I didn't know if you felt it was quite a like leap to go from tanks and planes to like weird laser cannons. Like,
I didn't, because I feel like they were described as like atomic lasers. I think they used maybe the word atomic, and maybe that is affected by the other movies I've watched. But a world that is clearly affected, I think, by these atomic and hydrogen bomb tests and all that sort of stuff. I guess this movie doesn't specifically tie that to Mothra in the way that the Godzilla movies tie it directly to Godzilla. But I think because it's at least acknowledged that is a part of the situation or part of what's coloring the story, I guess I didn't even question it.
That's really interesting too, because when it happened, because it's the Roskillians that have that technology, right? So I was viewing it sort of like, oh, here's this other, this other country that's a superpower that's like probably more advanced than Japan is. Like, that's what they're trying to say about that are going to come in with this like violent means to defeat Mothra. And then, it's wrong. Like, they shouldn't have done that kind of situation.
But I guess if all I'd seen is Mothra and I hadn't seen the other movies, I don't know that I would have been primed for a jump like that, because even though there's a massive monster, I guess I'm operating with like the oxygen, what is it called? The oxygen destroyer. Like, I'm operating with those things. That is also kind of a leap. So I think I'm expecting some sort of like leap in technology to be a solution. But yeah, if I'd only seen Mothra, that probably would have been the first time I was like, wait, where did that come from?
You're also watching this film from now backwards, and you are aware of the kind of the tropes of tokusatsu, and like, it doesn't feel bizarre to have the military using kind of sci-fi weapons essentially. But I think this is what I mean about the cinematic universe. I don't think of it necessarily as all of these connecting dots and it's all intentional, it's all trying to make you feel like this is this separate world. I think of it more as like, if you're thinking about these films going forwards, it's like, well, we did these 2 sci-fi movies about, and they developed these tanks. Our audience knows about these tanks. Like, if they're not going to find it weird, we got away with that. So, like, we still have the props. Let's wheel them out. Right. And I think you'll see a bit more of that where, again, if you go from Raids Again to King Kong versus Godzilla, it does feel like you basically are skipping a decade. It's like there's this whole little decade, and they're not lost films, but there are a lot of films kaiju fans don't watch, and almost no one. I mean, this is what's kind of funny, Doug, is that compared to me and Derek, you're maybe one of the only Godzilla fans who's watched Mothra before Mothra versus Godzilla.
Sure.
Like, you're actually watching these in the order that Japanese people in the 60s would have watched them. So
Sure.
I think I like to see those connections, because I think also a lot of Godzilla fans watch these films completely out of order, and when if you start thinking like, well, sometimes he's a goodie, sometimes he's a baddie, it's just kind of random. It's kind of not. I think actually Godzilla does have a character arc in these films, and I think
he absolutely does. Yeah,
he's still on it for you. I think where he goes to be this kind of more action hero character is a journey that happens film by film, and I just think the fact that between Raise Again and Mothra, they've made movies about space aliens, or between, Raise Again and Godzilla, I think that there's a lot. You've now seen all the context, not all of it, obviously, but you have a better understanding of it. And I think you don't necessarily have to watch Rodan before Rodan shows up. You don't have to watch any of these other things, but you'll see the little connective dots. Because I think also, I mean, in your King Kong versus episode, you said this is the first time King Kong's in color, first time Godzilla's in color, but it's not the first time Toho made monster movies in color. Like, the audience knew that. It was less of a Wizard of Oz moment. It was more like, well, now that we know how to make color monster movies, let's get Godzilla back,
Yeah, that's such a good point. I mean, this movie absolutely benefits from the Toho scope, because like Mothra and all the colors surrounding Mothra like pop very well because it's in color,
Some real like Star Trek-y colors on Infant Island as well. Yeah.
There were definitely things about this movie where I was like, this kind of feels like a long, it doesn't feel long, but it feels like a long Star Trek story in a way, Feels like the kind of story that they would explore on certain Star Trek series.
Yeah.
I also love this sort of like thought that you're having about, or I mean, you've probably had it for a long time. Now I'm having it about this other cinematic universe sort of model. And it's like nearly impossible anymore to have a conversation about cinematic universes because of what they currently are. But the idea that it's not like a single continuity, but the technology or the setting or the historical events are kind of informing every story along the way, not because the events happened, but because the audience is familiar, right? Like, we're not going to tell this exact same story again with these exact same things, but you've seen that in these situations, humanity can do these things. So we'll just build on that.
You will see that some later films kind of will give reference to like previous films. And I think it's this interesting, I mean, you've already seen it, like Godzilla 2000, I think, exists in a world where the 1954 film happened, and then maybe none of the other ones happened, or maybe they did. It's not super clear. Like, it's clear that Godzilla has been around a bit more, but
right.
And I think there will be future ones which are like, these films happened, and they never really say that film didn't happen. I mean, obviously they did. The Return of Godzilla said none of those films happened. I'm trying to be vague. I'm trying not to spoil anything. But I think it's just an interesting... It's like if you went to see Captain America 4 and it was like, we'll make reference to the other Captain America movies and Iron Man 2, but we'll not reference anything else, and that means none of those things happened. And it's like, what? That makes no sense. But it's just like a different way. And like Robert Downey Jr. will walk in, but he'll be playing the like president, and it won't be mentioned. It's like, I mean, to be fair, they've just cast the Thing in the Fantastic Four, and he was in the Punisher. So it's like, there is something similar going on, but I don't want to make it my whole like thesis.
There are, but I think it is harder and harder to do that, because you can't like, for a long time you couldn't hear about Captain America without also hearing about the Human Torch. Like, people can't let those things go. And instead of it just being a thing where an actor played multiple characters, I'm not saying fans shouldn't do this, but the problem is that corporations buy into it. Like, people then start thinking of all the ways that actually makes sense. And it's like, it doesn't have to make sense. It's fine. Like, he just is the president now. He just is this character now. He just is this other thing now. And the parts that you want to use are the parts you can use. It doesn't have to necessarily be this clean, pristine thing all the time.
Yeah.
Like, as a whole huge canon.
I mean, I've seen many fans. I think it's a fun exercise to like go back to these films and try and connect them more than they are. I think I've already done a little bit of that. I think to me, it's fun to imagine them all happening in the same world, but they're like, oh, Mothra's here. Let's use the tanks that we designed for the alien invasion. You know, you exist in a world where they know that killing Godzilla meant creating a weapon that killed the creator as well. It is a bit like, you know, in Marvel films, they sometimes mention that Iron Man was the like start of a sort of thing that like he said he was Iron Man, superheroes became real. It's like 1954 Godzilla was the start of this event. Of all of these monsters. They almost all have some link to the atomic, you know, tests. So it's like that was the birth of this world of monsters. And I do think it's fun to imagine what they would be like all together. I just don't think that was a priority of any of the filmmakers.
That's the distinction for me. I think as a fan exercise, it's fun. I think where we're at now, it's become specifically the marketable standard to like have it be baked into what you're doing. And I think it takes away from the fun exercise that is the fan exercise.
And I think it's just like a modern fan obsession with like canon and lore.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we're all big fans of like Kamen Rider. I'm a big Sentai guy. Every Sentai season, is it in the same universe? Is it not? Some of the actors are the same.
Depends on the episode.
It really doesn't matter.
Sometimes, is it a movie? Is it part of the series?
I'm much happier with things being loose. I'm controversially, I think, you know, those DC characters becoming public domain in 10 years might be some of the best stuff that's happened to them. I think we'll obviously get our like terrible Superman horror movie out of it, but like, you know, Pinocchio's public domain, and I think the non-Disney version was better. The recent Pinocchio films, you know. I don't think I don't know, I'm going on a completely unrelated tangent, but I do think a lot of Godzilla fans either overdo it with thinking that these are all cinematic universe, or they just never watch any of the non-Godzilla movies. And I think I'm really pleased that you've ventured out.
I'm excited to continue doing it. I mean, I think we might have to pick and choose some of them, but like, I mean, like Rodan, we have to do that because he's such a prominent character. I don't know that we'll necessarily do like Varen or something, you know, characters that make
never even heard of. So,
but especially some of the weird ones and stuff that
Space Amoeba, Yog the monster from space.
Never heard, but that is extremely appealing to me.
Yeah, there's some good ones.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't. Yeah, and then beyond then, I just love this. I love this podcast, and I would love it to keep going forever. I know that even if you just do the Godzilla movies, that's like several years of your life. But
Hamish, we started podcasting together with the goal of watching every Spider-Man cartoon ever, and if there isn't a more infinite, never-ending goal than that, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it could be.
I mean, I've toyed about doing Sentai podcasts in the past, but
there you go. That certainly rivals it.
50 episode seasons every year since the 60s. It's like
no big deal. It'll be fine. Release a daily podcast. That's cool.
Oh God.
And literally no one would listen.
I don't know about that.
What's wild is I think you'd have plenty of listeners.
Yeah. Well, anything else before we just, you know, wrap this up?
Red juice, man. 2 movies in a row.
We love red juice. We love a red juice. That just looks like paint.
Yeah. That's all. I was cool. Like, we have red juice again, and it really alarmed me, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm guessing that when he was, you know, when Sakazawa was stuck on that island, he made quite a few cocktails for himself.
I guess so.
It made its way into every script. Do you know that he also went to school with Tezuka, the creator of Astro Boy.
I didn't
No.
know that. Oh wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah,
Huh.
he was in like art school with him apparently.
Interesting. Wow. So cool.
I was just gonna. I mean, this is barely anything, but I just
Yeah.
want to shout out my favorite shot, which
Yeah.
I
Yes.
loved the shot of the fairy's little carriage going off and Mothra in the ocean.
Yeah.
Like it faded between, and I thought that was really lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm maybe thinking in my head, like the audience I saw this movie with went silent at the hatching, but I actually maybe it was that moment. I just remember this moment of like all the laughs stopping and there just being like a kind of hush of people going, oh,
Yeah. Well,
that's so magical.
and it helped. I mean, I guess we didn't we didn't really talk about their singing or whatever. I don't know what else is there to say that it's like a really catchy. All of their Mothra songs are very catchy. But I think that that's also part of it. Like the performance is really good. The score is by Yuji Koseki, who I don't think does another Godzilla movie or anything. Like doesn't do other Taiji movies. And I think like Ifukube was asked to do it and declined it because he didn't really feel like he could do the type of music that they wanted. I think like because they're kind of writing like sort of these like ballads or kind of almost pop song adjacent type things for the Peanuts for this. But like I think that sensibility really works and it's like a really iconic, the Mothra song, very iconic. You're gonna hear it plenty more times, Doug. It won't be the last time you hear the Mothra song.
We were both humming it when we got on the call, so
Yeah.
makes sense.
So, I think all of that with with the little carriage and their performance and everything, I think that does really stick out in this movie a lot for sure.
I love that Ifukube was like not daunted by like scoring a movie, not Godzilla. He literally scored a movie about Hiroshima in 1953. And that didn't daunt him, but composing for the Peanuts was like, no,
I couldn't possibly.
I just can't.
Yeah. So funny. But yeah, this has been awesome, y'all. Next we are gonna do Mothra versus Godzilla.
Oh, yeah,
obviously,
yeah.
in a couple of weeks, March 27th. So like, I mean, I already asked you questions about it in the last episode, but I guess now that you've seen Mothra,
Right.
Doug,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Generally, like, what do you think now? How's Mothra going to cross paths with Godzilla?
Well-
how's that movie going to feel? You know.
Well,
now that you've seen
I think last time I was talking about how you could easily intersect them and this was before I knew Mothra and only knew her reputation. You could easily intersect them if you make Godzilla more of a malevolent force and she's not. I actually,
Right.
I don't think that's the case, actually. I think based on what we saw here, I'm guessing that she somehow, if only by accident, ends up intersecting with Japan, and Godzilla, who we know is not dead, is somehow maybe utilized. I know that there is a hero sort of version of Godzilla coming at some point. I don't know when. And I don't really know how that even works. So I'm excited to see
Right.
how eventually that works. But I do imagine that he is the solution to the problem that is Mothra accidentally ending up in Japan. I don't really know how she ends up there. And I don't know how they would prompt him to be their hero. But I have to imagine based on King Kong versus Godzilla, that's the vibe.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Of course.
Do you think the next movie will feel more like a sequel to King Kong versus Godzilla or a sequel to Mothra?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I think part of the problem with King Kong versus Godzilla is the fact that they had King Kong in there, and I don't know how much they are going to be able to acknowledge in movies without him that he ever existed. And so, based solely on that, I would imagine if it's not direct, but if it is a sequel to one of them, it would probably be more of a sequel to Mothra. But I also could see a world where she just hatches again, like she's just hatching all over again for the first time and was never acknowledged as having hatched before.
I mean, Mothra...
Yeah.
You do have to come out over and over the course of your life. You know what I mean?
Look, we love a reveal. We love a stunt queen.
Exactly.
I'm interested. I mean, Mothra gets top billing at the next one.
It is
If
Mothra
you'll
versus
think
Godzilla.
Yep. It's Mothra
Okay.
versus
I wonder if
Godzilla.
you'll think of it more if it's a Mothra movie that Godzilla is like interrupting, or a Godzilla movie that Mothra. Because again, I think not just cinematic universe, but I think at this time there was less of an idea of like the Godzilla filmography, the Godzilla canon,
sure.
and then these individual solo movies. Like the series could have gone in either direction. It could have been that Mothra fought all of the monsters. So
I mean, King Kong
I'm
was
gonna-
the get, and now it's Godzilla
Yeah.
versus King Kong as opposed to the other way around, you know?
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to watch Mothra vs. Godzilla like straight away.
I know I'm gonna have a hard time holding off.
Yeah. I mean, you could watch it and then just watch it again when we have to record it.
I know.
in a
I
few
totally
weeks,
could.
So there you go.
Probably will.
Well, this has been great. We love Mothra. We love our queen. Of course, Hamish, thank you so much for doing this, and thank you for forcing us to watch Mothra.
Oh, yes.
Which is a thing we would have done anyway, but making us actually talk about it on a podcast.
We'll give you credit.
Yeah,
That's my purpose in life, is to make people watch Mothra.
Love it.
I'm a convert.
Anything you want to plug? Any places that you want people to find you or things you're working on?
Sure, I'm Hamish Steele pretty much everywhere. I run an account that I'm like really posting on a lot now, called No Context Sentai on X/Twitter. I have thought about making an Instagram, but like then it starts becoming my job, and like, no. On my lunch break, I watch a Sentai and I screenshot. I can't say the name or really anything about it, but I do want to just tease, I suppose, that I have. Well, first of all, I'll say that I have a book coming out. Dead Endia 3, Dead Endia the Divine Order, comes out in April in America, and then like slowly across the world over the summer. I'm going to be doing some...
We're getting so close.
I'm going to be doing some tours. I can't reveal dates, but I think I'm going to Seattle, LA, Toronto, New York, London, Helsinki, maybe, at different points across the year. So the Dead Endia series is what I'm known for, blah, blah, blah. But I do want to just let you know that now that Dead Endia is done, my next series is a kaiju love letter fun time explosion series, and I'm having so much fun drawing it, watching a Sentai for lunch, then going back to it and putting even more like zaniness into it. And I'm really proud of it because I think it's like it's very much like a place of appreciation. It's not sort of making fun or a parody of any of its stuff. It's really my aim to use the genre to tell its own unique story, and I'm really like in that headspace at the moment.
Truly living the dream.
Right? I'm so excited for that because I do think there have been, a couple things recently that take the genre seriously, but not in a direction that I think maybe takes
seriously.
It sometimes further away from the roots in order to take it seriously. And I'm excited for what you're going to be doing because I imagine that will not be the case.
Yes.
The literal whole pitch was I want to give people the same feeling I got when I first watched this stuff. Like,
I love that.
Yes.
So look forward to that probably next year, sadly, but that's what I'm working on right now.
Love it. Oh, that's so exciting. Yes, definitely follow all of Hamish's stuff and read all of his stuff. It's all great. If you would like to find other queer creators who are talking about media like this, check out the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective at glitterjaw.com. Follow it on Twitter, Facebook, and Blue Sky at Glitterjaw, and on Instagram at GlitterjawPods. But Doug, if people want to find you and everything you're working on, where can we do that?
You can find me everywhere at Ikkybooley, ICKYBOOLEY. You can also listen to me on one of those Glitterjaw shows called Novel Gaming, where my co-host Katie and I catch up on all the books and video games, and sometimes other media that we have been consuming lately. What about you, Derek?
Sure, you can find me most active on Twitter at Derek B. Gale, or on other platforms under that name, or Dare Bear, Mr. Dare Bear. I also have a new podcast called Lee Carvalho's Potting Challenge, which is a podcast I do with my co-host Tommy, where we go through all the Simpsons tie-in video games chronologically. I have a podcast to do with Doug called Walloping Web Snappers, where we look at every Spider-Man cartoon ever made. I have a podcast that I do with my co-host David called Gimmicks, where we look at the high-concept, experimental, and structure-breaking gimmicky episodes of TV. Hamish has been on an episode about Doctor Who. That was very, very good. One of our most popular, or not one of, our most popular episode ever so far. By a wide margin. So definitely check that out anywhere you get your podcast. podcasts. If you want to support this podcast, best place to do that is actually going to the Patreon, patreon.com/wallopingwebsnappers. Obviously, that's the name for our Spider-Man podcast, but it supports everything Doug and I do together. We do have some Godzilla-centric bonus episodes. One should be out by the time this podcast episode drops, and we have more in the works. So there will be some fun Godzilla content happening on there. Of course, we have a Discord. We have a whole Skrionk channel for this show, so you can check that out. Link in the show notes. You can email us at skrionkpodcast@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe on all your podcast platforms. And in 2 weeks, on March 27th, we're going to follow Mothra to her first meeting with Godzilla in Mothra versus Godzilla.
I'm excited. Bye.
Bye.
Mothra ya Mothra Dongan kasaku yang Indomu Lusto willado Hamba mu yang Tanda banguradan Tonyu kana Kasaku ya